Well, good morning, good afternoon, and in some parts of the world, good evening. Welcome to the Take Your Power Back show. I'm your host, Peak Performance Master Coach Kim Yeater. Today's empowering program, Operation Clean Sweep Part 3, will encourage you, we the people, to step into our God-given power, access our leadership on a local level, and allow our voices to be heard. We want to welcome in every single one of you today. You are back again for a powerful, powerful episode of Operation Clean Sweep Part 3, our final in the 3. Thank you for taking this time aside. I know every single one of you are show hosts that are broadcasting today. Everybody has a busy life. And life doesn't stop. The fact that you have made it here today to watch this, and even if you're watching this after the fact, thank you for making truth a priority. Thank you for standing for our republic. I want to say thank you to every live streamer. It's because of these live streamers, these show hosts. They are committed to you. They are committed to our country. They are committed to the truth and justice being served. They are streaming on platforms across the world right now. I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. You see, it takes all of us, every single one of us, to unite and come together to be that stand for freedom. Today, I want to do a special thank you to my production team that also makes this possible. They've worked with all of our live streamers, and that is Chula Vista Live Data, and I'm Data 17. Thank you, thank you, thank you. In today's Take Your Power Back show, Operation Clean Sweep, we will expose the mortgage fraud connected to the Ukraine, China, and Canada that impacts our city, our country, and yes, our own backyard. In the past 2 Operation Clean Sweep shows, we've been showing you evidence of the election fraud, voter fraud, geopolitical shifting, gentrification, and human trafficking cover-ups. We today will show you the fraudulent mortgages with hundreds of billions, if not $1 trillion, in fraud and embezzlement. This is systematic corruption. What we see taking place in Millersville, Tennessee, little Millersville, Tennessee, is a microcosm of what is being exposed nationally and internationally. We will be speaking with the federal whistleblower warrior, retired Assistant Chief Shawn Taylor, and former city attorney Bryant Kroll, as they continue to roll out the 16-year murder board of evidence connecting all the dots, just like we saw in the last show, like a string of pearls, each pearl being a parasite of corruption across transnational lines. Now, in the last show, we touched on DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. Yes, we've heard a lot. Exposing this corruption at a very high level, right? That's what DOGE is doing. It's so big that it can be really challenging to fully grasp it in how it affects us on a local level. DOGE uncovered $8.2 billion in unspent humanitarian aid through USAID. It is now becoming clearer to us, to we the people, how this governmental organization, USAID, is being run by unelected bureaucrats, shoveling our taxpayer dollars to their pet projects overseas. Today, Assistant Chief Shawn Taylor and former City Attorney Bryant Kroll break it down in bite-sized pieces at a very local level, providing all the evidence and connecting the dots of the mortgage fraud funding, the racketeering, and the paying off of these elected officials. Oh yeah, in your neck of the woods. All these dots have tentacles leading to transnational corruption. Operation Clean Sweep is giving us, we the people, a template on how we can take our power back on that local level. The Civil Federal RICO Case that was launched is a template for all of us fighting this corruption and opens the door for a Federal Criminal RICO Case to prosecute these criminals. Remember General Flynn's famous words of truth: local action equals national impact. and the time for action is now. Let's welcome in our warriors, Operation Clean Sweep, retired Assistant Chief Shawn Taylor, and former City Attorney Bryant Kroll. Gentlemen, welcome on into the Take Your Power Back show.
Hey, Kim, thank you guys for all the work that you're doing on all of this and helping us get all this information out. We've been getting a lot of feedback and a lot of comments, and, we're reaching out there and we're getting a lot more information in for us to be able to investigate.
Powerful. Really, really powerful. The fact is, you've got people emailing you, reaching out and saying, we have this evidence on a local level right where we are in our state. And the coolest thing from my experience, and I think for all of us that saw the last show, is how you've connected the dots. It's masterful. Bryant, good morning.
Good morning.
So Bryant, I just, I want to lay this out flat before we even begin and before we dig on in, because I know we're going to do a quick recap. I'm going to pass it over to you guys. None of this is easy. You guys running the race you're running put your business, your career in jeopardy, put your lives in jeopardy, but you continue to stand. You continue to stand for all of us so that we will follow your example and stand and take our great republic back. Bryant, before we begin, I know you like that, right? Bryant, before we begin, I want you to tell me, what has this journey been like for you?
Well, at bottom, it's not just another lawsuit. I worked alongside these men and at Millersville, so I've come to know them pretty well. And, seeing their integrity tarnished with the fake news campaign and all of these other things, and then having all these special interest groups get involved, you really start to live it. And I think that the filing of the lawsuit is just the start of a whole new chapter in this book. And we look forward to getting into discovery and all these things. So I think we're going to see a lot of really, really huge revelations here when that starts happening, much like what you're seeing with DOGE and USAID and all of that kind of stuff. So, and it's shocking. It's also kind of a relief to know that somebody's looking into this stuff. And so a RICO-based lawsuit is another way of exposing the same corruption. So we're here and we're ready to get after it.
Come on, we are here and we're ready to get after it. And we are exposing the parasites of corruption. Shawn Taylor, what has this been like for you?
Just continuing to try to dig information, mine information, be able to take in the information that some of the viewers are giving us. It's literally been about 16 to 18-hour days, maybe enough time to take a 10-minute break about every 4 or 5 hours. So it's nonstop. Information never stops. And if you don't stay on top of it, you get behind, and we're not willing to let that happen. So we got a long way to go because we're just really starting the fight.
Yeah. I think that's important for all of us to hear. We now have someone in office, Donald J. Trump, that is standing for we the people and giving us what we need to truly take our power back on that local level. But it is going to be up to us to take that action. So what you're presenting today is really to empower each one of us. You're giving us the template, and that is going to be key in taking our power back on that local level. And I just want to acknowledge you guys. It has been a blessing to be able to work behind the scenes. And a lot of our show hosts that are sharing today, they've had you on the shows. They know the journey that you guys have gone through. They know your house being shot up, Shawn. They know what the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation did to you. Bryant, we even know the threats that you've been getting, right? Your career on the line. So I just want to say, this was the word that came to me this morning: men of valor. That is who you are, is men of valor. Thank you. Thank you for being the George Washington. Thank you for being the Abraham Lincoln. Thank you for being a stand for my freedom, my baby's freedom, the generations to come, for all of us. Thank you. Shawn, let's pass it over to you. Give us a quick recap and then bring us on in to the mortgage fraud.
So what we're going to do is we're going to share one of the I2 charts that we've been creating, gathering all the evidence and stuff like that. And we're going to end up going through some of this piece by piece and showing how it breaks down, how these people are connected, and just how far it goes. And it goes to your neck of the woods, Kim, and goes into Maricopa County, Arizona. And it involves a lot of people that are, they like to call them Rhino Republicans, but they're not. They're uniparty. Mm-hmm. The uniparty is basically the criminals on the Democratic Party and the criminals in the Republican Party. And so what we've done is we've got what we call the cells. We have the different cells that break down that make up the organism of this animal. And so when we look at this and it breaks out into how everybody is connected, you start seeing all the affiliations. You start seeing where the politics play in. You start seeing where the money is coming in and things like that. So we had talked about Phil Williams, quite a bit, and his attack on the city of Millersville and everything that he was saying. So we started digging through all of the connections with Phil and his connections to who he's affiliated with, because essentially he's nothing more than a political operative. So one of the things that we found is that he's tied to Midas Touch Media. Midas Touch Media was started by three brothers, and the brothers, I call them Bread, Jordan Measles, Benjamin, Jared Measles, and Brett. They created a PAC called the Midas PAC. It goes by something else now. And basically they started the propaganda machine, Midas Touch, that is now Midas Media. Their father happens to be the attorney for P. Diddy and a lot of his businesses. Okay. Mm-hmm. And P. Diddy actually introduced their father to his now wife. Okay. So it just goes to show you how close they are. The one son actually was brought in as an intern for Hillary Clinton because of Diddy. And then he and Diddy started a program to help Clinton raise votes during the 2016 election. One of the major people that's tied to Midas is this gentleman right here, Reed Garrett Hoffman. And he's one of the mega donors to Midas Touch. But some of the other things that he is tied to is he's tied to the fake rape case with Jean Carroll. He's tied to Nikki Haley and donating $250,000 to her. But he's also tied to this guy here that we all know, Jeffrey Epstein.
That's right.
Okay. And who else do we know that's tied to Jeffrey Epstein? Hillary Clinton. One of the other people that Hoffman is tied to, that he provided donated for the legal defense over the fake dossier with Fusion GPS, who created the fake dossier to go after Trump for the whole Russia hoax. Mm-hmm. So you see that we're dealing with some pretty big players that are in that movement that's really worried about what DOGE is uncovering, and Phil Williams is a part of that because he's going on different platforms with Frederick Wellman, who is also a part of the Lincoln Project, which of course we know is a Rhino stronghold, uniparty stronghold. And, one of the people that we saw that they backed in a major way was the former senator there out of Arizona that died. I can't think of his name now, but he had run for president and all that. The Lincoln Project had backed him. So when we start unpacking all of this and we start seeing how it comes together, we started talking about, Christina Template and her voter fraud issues and things like that, her backing what we call the Template 3, mm-hmm. which were installed as commissioners at the city of Millersville. And one of the reasons I retired, because they're basically carrying her water. So they received political donations through a company or a PAC that was basically built for them called the Best of Tennessee Victory Fund. Okay. And what they did is all of these donations came in to the Tennessee Victory Fund for them through the Best of Tennessee Action PAC. All right. So mm-hmm. we started following the money, and what we found out is basically this is a uniparty stronghold for people. They were donating to Sam McKenzie, who's a Democrat out of Knoxville. Okay. They were donating to people like Farrell Hale, who's a local senator that's also come after us. And, let's take a look at his voting record. He supported a bill allowing the use of sex change and transitioning drugs in children ages 9 years and 9 years old and up for gender dysphoria. Supported giving doctors and dentists the right to give the children the HPV vaccine and COVID vaccine without parental consent. Would not support taking the pride flags out of and other controversial flags out of the children's classrooms. Co-sponsored legislation allowing illegal immigrants to obtain commercial and business license.
Yeah.
Supported legislation for illegal immigrants, in-state tuition. Sponsored bills during Governor Lee's special session in which would limit your Second Amendment right, and voted against your right to refuse medical treatment. Okay, that's the kind of people that this PAC is behind. And she, the woman that runs a lot of this, that's tied to a lot of this, is Kimberly Ann Cagey. Okay, she's been hired by numerous individuals, and she just happens to live and has property out of Maricopa County, Arizona.
All roads lead to Maricopa County.
Yep. She ties into Lamar Alexander, who was supposed to be the staunch Republican, and he was also one of the governors here in the state of Tennessee that was against Obamacare, and we'll get into that in a little bit. She helped with Bob Corker, Bill Lee, and Bill Haslam with their campaigns and all of that. So those are huge strongholds, and we keep seeing the same people popping up. And one of the other people that's going to hit close to home for you, Kim, is this company we found, 1892, which donated to this fund with a guy by the name of Chip Wilson Engler, who's out of Gallatin. Okay. The reason this is going to hit home for you is because he's also part of the Chula Vista Library in San Diego County.
Library. Yeah. That's our border city.
Oh, it's a border city.
It's a border city.
That's kind of interesting because when we follow this line up, the chief of staff in San Diego there with the clerk's office is this guy here that we've already talked about. Yeah, that's right. And where was he before? He was in Maricopa County, Arizona, where he was the property assessor, and he sent that very suspicious email, which we'll go over in a minute, to the mayor of Sumner County, Tennessee, okay, who used to be the property assessor. Now, some of the other things that we're finding very interesting is other people that were getting into this, like Deborah Maggart, who's a local lobbyist, who's also tied to Phil Williams, who is also tied to the stuff that's going on in Millersville. She's tied to a woman by the name of Charlena Allmiller, who has also worked for the state, no longer there, who's been filing frivolous lawsuits. She's tied to Compass, which is a community outreach for schools. And then, we've actually got her tied right here with pictures with Charlene Allmiller and Deborah Maggart. She's also the lobbyist for Microvote. She's a lobbyist for Sandy Hook Promise, which is for gun control. And she's also part of the Tennessee Healthcare Campaign. The Tennessee Healthcare Campaign, which is basically Obamacare and getting people transitioned into it, also ties into Justin Jones, who is tied into Act Blue. We found that we had 422 identical donations on June 30th for the same amount of money for the exact same people to come in through Justin's platform on Act Blue. And we had the exact same amount of donations on that day from the exact same people go out to Maxwell Frost, who's also a social justice warrior out of Florida. And he's one of the youngest congressmen trying to push this social justice change. And all of a sudden, that goes all the way back to the CEO, one of the first CEOs, Jonathan Zucker, who then ties into back to Mr. Wellman. That goes into Act Blue, which ties everything from Act Blue into Midas Media. So we're tying all of these things together.
Yes.
And it's amazing how all of this stuff comes together into your voter fraud, comes into Act Blue, goes into Midas Touch Media, and things of that nature. So, that kind of gives you the net on what we're looking at. And, we're going to kind of go through a little bit of a slideshow and look at this on how it breaks down. And so let me get this screen correct for us. Here we go. And let's share this.
Okay.
All right. Let's
Got
see.
it. Coming up right now. Well, this is, I think, Shawn, I just want to say this, that when we visually see the chart, Bryant, and you see our brain can't handle that. There's only so much information our brain can handle without the visual. So when we have that visual, man, we can land it. And what does San Diego have to do with Tennessee? Like, how is that all connected? But it is all interconnected. Right. Let's pull up that chart.
All right. So the last time we met, we went over the voter fraud with Christina Template.
Oh, yeah.
And we were able to prove all of that. We've got her voter registration. We've got the election roll that showed that she had actually run or changed her address on January 18th of 2018 to the 7711 Ruby Lane. We were able to prove that there was no house there, nothing, until March 12th of 21. And so we've been able to discern that she committed voter fraud, that she registered to run for office and get elected, and all of that. And every one of those, there's different crimes in that. And Bryant explained that, when you're taking an oath of office, when you're signing documents like this, you're not only committing felonies, you're committing perjury as well by signing these documents, and you've committed fraud. And so we were able to discern that 100%. And one of the things that we were able to also prove is that the voters, the Sumner County Election Commission was involved in this through the emails regarding Christina Template, them trying to say, the election office trying to say that Millersville did not have a requirement where they had to live in the city to run for office for the city. We have them changing her dates on when they said she registered at that address. And, we've got the emails directly from the elections office, which is run by Lori Ashley. And so, when we're looking at this, you've got to wonder, how in the heck can this be happening? And then, we sent it up to Ray Whitley, the district attorney general there. And Ray Whitley has, he basically sent us a letter back saying he wasn't going to prosecute, that couldn't be successfully prosecuted. There wasn't enough evidence. Let me tell you, there was more than enough evidence. And, when we look at Ray Whitley, we have to look at some of the things that he's been involved in. And one of the cases that he was involved in was the Spurlock Marshall case. And I'll let Bryant kind of explain that for a minute.
Sure. And these are both public records. I think you should be able to get them off of like Justia, but it was State of Tennessee versus Marshall and then State of Tennessee versus Spurlock. What happened there is those were co-defendants, and then there were two separate cases. They split it. Mm-hmm. And the roundabout way, I guess the Cliff Notes version of it is that there was it wasn't just an overzealous prosecution. And this isn't me talking. This is the Court of Appeals talking. So it when the judges there's a 3-judge panel that's involved in those decisions, and they outright accused General Whitley of perjury in that case. In fact, there was a dissent talking about the red badge, the scarlet letter that comes with such an accusation. But essentially what happened is, and you got to read them both together, there was a group, a well-known crime family in this area called the Bandies. Mm-hmm. And what it looked like, and this is what Shawn was saying in some of the other podcasts that drew some attention from Fake News Phil, essentially that this was a cover-up to protect them. Well, what do you call it when you go after two people multiple times? there is no evidence that they actually did the crime, and you're doing it. Meanwhile, the other guy is the one that's guilty. I mean, it looks like a cover-up. Objectively, that's, they ultimately, Shawn, I think it was 4 different prosecutions that kept coming in, and there was altered evidence. There was a videotape that wasn't handed over to the defense, and there's all these things. They got convicted, it was overturned. They got convicted, it was overturned. They got convicted, it was overturned. And I think it was like 12 years or something like that these guys were just run through the ringer, and then finally they get out. And I believe they sued in federal court. And then, of course, you have a immense hurdle with getting over prosecutorial immunity. So essentially, there could be no recourse for these guys. But that was one of the very first things that Fake News Phil attacked Shawn Taylor over in Millersville right after the pedophiles thing. He was saying, "Oh, he's been critical of the district attorney." Of course, he also said that Shawn has no evidence of that. Well, the cases are public records. So you really can't make this stuff up. You got to love the propaganda machine that they just look you right in the face and say, you don't have any evidence of that. Meanwhile, there's 2, published cases with all of this, 25 pages each or something like that go through this process. This wasn't Shawn making this up.
Right.
This is a matter of public record. So that's the gist of those cases. And Shawn, I'll turn it back over to you if you've got the stuff ready.
Yeah. So one of the other cases is this Schaefer Middle School teacher, who goes by the last name of Ring, who had sexual assault charges put against him, I guess basically is what it was, for 2 counts of aggravated sexual battery and 2 counts of simple assault. And basically what ended up happening with this case under Whitley is this teacher was given probation. Okay. He was given probation for assaulting children. And it just so happens that this teacher's brother is a local politician as well. And it was to the point that Whitley was going to allow him to continue teaching. And it was on the Board of Education to take this teacher's license from him to stop him from teaching. So imagine that, a district attorney who is going to allow a predator to go back to the classroom, right? So, but then we have some other national cases that have come through here with Ray Whitley that have caused some really, really big headlines. Even Giuliani got in on this one, which is the Grant Solomon death. So the Grant Solomon death is where a teenager, Grant Solomon, was going to go forward to testify against his father for his father molesting his sister, Gracie. And the school tried to cover it up there. And the next thing we know, Grant's dad wanted to meet with Grant at a location there in Sumner County, which is under Ray Whitley's control. And mysteriously, Grant's pickup truck runs him over.
His own pickup truck runs him over.
Now, his father is very politically connected because he was a news anchor at I think it was Channel 4 News. And a lot of people thought a lot of him. But when we started digging into a lot of this stuff, we started finding things that came back to some of these local schools and things like that. And basically, a lot of kids that had been being molested and it was trying to be covered up and stuff like that. We had enough information on this to be able, like right now, we've got enough information to pretty much prove that the Grant Solomon case was a murder. But Ray Whitley refuses to open the case back up. So, the joke in the medical examiner's office there, which is, it's a bad joke, but it is, if you want to murder somebody and get away with it, you do it in Sumner County. Okay. So think about that statement for a minute. If you want to do something, you do it in Sumner County if you want to get away with it. And what does that tell you about this DA? It tells you he's a part of this criminal organization that we're looking at. So that's Mr. Whitley, who refused to prosecute Miss Template. And one of the next characters that we end up finding in this is this Deborah Maggart. Deborah Maggart is she was a local politician, and then she became a lobbyist. And if you look down there on the bottom there, it says Microvote General Corporation.
Shawn,
Microvote
share your
is
screen. Share your screen with us. It's
not
not shared.
sharing.
Nope, not yet.
Okay.
You had gotten popped out.
Present, share screen. Let's see here. Let's try this again. Okay. Try that and that. Let's see if that pops up.
Beautiful. Excellent.
Okay. So Deborah Maggart was a local politician, and then she ended up becoming a lobbyist. Deborah Maggart is very close with these judges, very close with the DA, and different people like that, including Christina Template and another woman by the name of Charlene Allmiller, who's an attorney that keeps pressing fraudulent or frivolous, bringing frivolous cases. And one of the things that Deborah Maggart is a part of is a microvote, which is the voting machines there in Sumner County. Now, the interesting part about the voting machines is we were supposed to be getting new voting machines. And when you get that stuff, and Bryant can expound on this, you're supposed to put out bids of what you want. And Bryant, can you kind of explain how that bid process works and how they're looking for certain things?
Absolutely. Yeah. So if I recall from the requirements here, they wanted to be able to run a full audit. The voting machines had to do certain things. And of course, when you have any kind of government bid, there should be multiple bidders that come in, and then there's an educated decision that's made after that. But there was all kinds of conflict of interest issues with this particular group, because I believe the attorney for Microvote is also, or the lobbyist for Microvote is also one of these person's attorneys, like personal attorneys, or work for the county or something like that. I know that these particular Microvote machines do a comprehensive report that should be made available to the public. It's a public record under the Public Records Act here. But they won't, and I requested one, and it was denied after the election in Millersville in November. I requested a copy of this very report, which was part of the specification that was required to get the bid anyway. And then they say, well, we don't run those, so it's not a public record. That's not really how that works. If it's capable of making the record, the case law says that we should get it. So what that looks like is a cover up for voter fraud, is what it looks like. When you have the full audit report, and there's a term of art for it that's I'm blanking on the name of this phrase for this type of report, but it's the whole shebang. It's the kit and caboodle, and they won't give it. It's like, well, why won't you give me that? What are you trying to hide? I mean, this is just the way of things. So we think that there's been significant issues with that, and we've heard various things from people who've come forward to us about voter fraud and voter fraud related issues from the inside. And the problem is most of these people are too scared to even come forward with this. We'll get it secondhand, and then we go call these people, they won't answer, or they say, I'm not going to testify to that. You didn't hear that from me. They're going to wind up in a ditch somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, we look at Tina Peters. People do not want to be Tina Petered. Clerks aren't coming forward with the information that they have. So that's the case.
Yep.
So to the right here, these pictures here are of Deborah Maggart and Melissa Gay, who is Judge Gay's wife. Okay. Judge Gay has had a lot of complaints on him, but he sits on the Judiciary Committee. So he's the one who doles out punishments, but nobody will punish him. So we find it very funny that she's very good friends with the judge's wife, and definitely hooked into the political scene there. Now, the next slide, if we can get it up, this is Deborah Maggart and her love affair for Phil Williams and his liberal progressive movement, basically, kind of coming after us. And her and Phil seem to tag each other quite a bit in posts and things of that nature. And of course, she's going to know Phil because she's down there at the Capitol quite a bit. And so, they have a lot in common. So Bryant had brought up the attorney. This guy here, who is Thomas Lee, was one of the attorneys for the voting system there. He's also on the Sandy Hook Promise Action Fund for the gun control. But he was on the Microvote board, and he was an attorney, and he was also a lobbyist for them. Now, the interesting thing about that is we have documents, which I'm going to stop sharing this one again for just a minute, because I think it's important to bring up some of these documents to be able to show everybody what we're talking about. And basically what we have here is this is going to be the court document where it actually shows where this gentleman actually made a statement on Lori Ashley's behalf. And so, think about that for just a minute. This guy.
Share that screen, Shawn. Share that screen.
I'm going to pull it up right now.
Okay,
if I can
perfect.
get it to. There we go. All right. So here at the bottom, which I don't have a way to zoom in very good, but it basically says that Tom Lee, the attorney representing the Election Commission in the lawsuit against the county, submitted the following statements. The County Election Commission has learned that Lori Ashley has been cited for a minor property offense arising from a private dispute, mindful that the persons are innocent until proven guilty. So basically, this attorney is taking up for her, and he's taken up for her on several other occasions from what we understand as well. Now, when we get further into this, you're going to see that this wasn't just, we already know. We played the 911 tape on the last show where she actually assaulted her husband, boyfriend, or whatever
That's
he
right.
was.
Yeah.
And you have the guy who's an attorney over the election systems that she purchased that she shouldn't have purchased, because the other bid that they had covered what the county was looking for more. So the voting machines that she went with did not cover special elections there, and she went with the microvote instead. And that cost, little cities like Millersville, almost $100,000 extra to be able to have a special election, where she could have went with the other machine, which was all encompassing of what was needed. Okay. And she did this pretty much on her own. So this guy was involved in, helping her and assisting her. And when we look at it in totality, we have to look at Charlene Allmiller, who's, pretty much a liberal attorney with ties to the state of Tennessee. She's tied directly to Deborah Maggart. Allmiller is tied directly to the templates right here. We know that they're talking. We know that they have a lot of talks about what's happened in Millersville. So they have to keep Lori Ashley in office so they can manipulate what's happening in the city of Millersville. So when we look at her, when we look at Lori Ashley, one of the things that attorney was talking about was a theft that occurred. That was a theft over $1,000 of a trailer. And I believe it was Judge Gay made this court case go away. It just poof, it's gone. Okay. And you got to wonder why. Why is this happening? Theft, Bryant, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a question of morals.
Crime of dishonesty. Yes, it is.
And anybody who's in an elected office should have automatically been put on administrative leave pending the outcome of the court case. I mean, is that not correct?
Yeah, that would be the proper way to handle that. If you've got a theft issue, it's a crime of dishonesty. You have a person in a position of trust. It would make sense. And in fact, I believe it's standard protocol for that you would be taken out of that position of trust until this matter is resolved. And I mean, yeah, people are innocent until proven guilty, but there's evidence of this. So that needs to be addressed as well to protect the citizens. I mean, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, and it did not happen. So, when we start putting all of these different people together and all of a sudden we start seeing what's happening, you've got so many people that are involved that claim, oh, well, I'm a conservative Republican, but yet these are the exact same people that are, what is it called? The the Sumner County Constitutional Republican Party, I think it is. Is that correct, Brian?
Yeah. They've been attacking that group. And Shawn, correct me if I'm wrong, the SCCR, so you have these Republicans that we've been looking at here attacking the SCCR, and you saw that stuff from Deborah Maggart. Some of them go so far as to say it's a hate group, and it's ridiculous. I mean, this is a grassroots movement of, I guess, basically just fed up citizens that were tired of this stuff. And Shawn, you may know more about that, but I've met Jeremy Mansfield, who was he's over there in a town that neighbors Millersville, and he's an elected official out there, and he seemed like a stand-up guy to me.
Yeah. And they're filing these frivolous lawsuits to try to find out where information is coming from so they can try to stop the information, kind of like Judge Thompson refusing to sign the subpoena, requesting information, and he wanted to know how our detective knew about the information even existing. And so, you have this entire conglomerate of these people who are acting definitely not for the people. And, they're voting into the lobbyists, the voting machines. They're in the DA's office. They're in the judge's seat and things of that nature. So when we start looking at this in totality, we've got some real problems here. And people need to understand this is not just in the state of Tennessee. This is problems that are happening throughout the United States. And, one of the people that's been really tied into this is the county mayor there in Sumner County. And so the county mayor that we had told you about before is John Isabel. And before that, I believe he was a property assessor for 16 years previous to being elected the mayor of Sumner County. And we had brought up his John Isabel's ties to that Tim Bonatsky guy, who was the deputy chief property assessor with the property assessor, Paul Peterson, who's in prison for human trafficking, out of Maricopa County. And then we showed the emails of where Bonatsky and was sending email directly to John Isabel about them being concerned about him running for county mayor. Why are they concerned in Maricopa County in the International Assessors Association office concerned? What does that have to do with anything? And then all of a sudden, when Paul goes to prison, what happens? Tim ends up in your area in San Diego County.
San Diego, California, Tim Akowski.
Yeah, and he ends up there. So we're looking at this huge political thread that we're pulling. And is that why Lori Ashley hasn't been to court on what we had talked about for the 911 call? Is it this political machine that they've created to keep this stuff from happening? Because one of our people called the Sumner County Court Clerk's office about Lori Ashley's case. That person was told that it was transferred to Davidson County because she was over the elections. So, that would make sense. You transfer it to a different county. Well, the problem is when Davidson County was called, they have no information on this case whatsoever. And basically the case has been hidden. Okay. So, we got some real problems there. And you would think that it's just at the local level. Well, it's not. It's not just at that local level. It's going all the way to the top. And it's involving things that people would have never thought of. We've got people like Deborah Maggart. We've got Lori Ashley. We've got the DA. We've got people like that are trying to cover up the different things that are happening, not only here in the state of Tennessee, but are happening throughout the United States. And one of some of the people that we're looking at are people like Bob Corker and Lamar Alexander. Lamar Alexander was a governor here. He went up to the federal level, and then you have Bob Corker, Senator Bob Corker, who's involved in this. They were completely against the Obamacare thing, and they were trying to stop a lot of it supposedly. But we talked about the Tennessee healthcare campaign, and the Tennessee healthcare campaign is basically Obama's. It's something for the Obamacare and things like that. And that group was started by Augusta Garr. And here we have Lamar Alexander and Bob Corker with Augusta Garr promoting him. So, talking out both sides of your mouth. So again, here we have people like John McCain, who I was talking about, couldn't remember his name, that's tied to the Lincoln Project.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you have these rhino Republicans as well. And Bob Corker certainly didn't like President Trump, and he ended up leaving office early under Trump's first administration. So, but then the person you have tied into the Obamacare campaign is Justin Jones. And Bryant, can you tell some of the stuff with Justin Jones and what's going on with him? And
he's one of the Tennessee Three, and that goes back to the protest that came after the Covenant shooting, if I'm correct. Was he the one that was jumping on top of the police car?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, inciting a riot and all this stuff. And so you've got this there was a vote to try to remove them from office, and then it became kind of a rallying cry for more flashpoints for the left side here. But you look into the screen you've got up there, you're talking about the history being manipulated and cleansed. I'll tell you, Shawn, anytime we've run a lot of open source intelligence reports, and everybody's got stuff, on them. And when you run somebody and there's nothing there, that is a red flag. So you're what goes into open source intelligence stuff. This is you've got your internet, you've got Google, you've got searches and things. And then when you have a background report, like something like LexisNexis or Westlaw or Intellius even, and each one has its strengths and weaknesses, they'll look at like utility records and things like that. That'll be reported, so like a cell phone or something like that. You have your DMV records, you have all this other stuff. And when you have somebody whose background's been cleansed, it's usually an intentional act. They've had to go and do it. And there's certain programs that you can go through, like one of the same companies that's really good at open source intelligence also tells you how to be, hidden off the, but why would you worry about these things unless you're trying to hide something in your background? It's very interesting stuff, but Shawn's found some serious money ties going from him that we saw on that chart, the I2 chart. So
and that's what we're talking about there is Act Blue coming into this. We got 422 people who donated to Jones on June 30th, but yet those exact people supposedly gave the exact same amount, not only to Jones, but to Frost on the same day out of Florida. Okay. This is where we got into the whole smurfing and things like that. And, we look at that in totality. It's like, where is all of this money coming from?
Yes.
That's going into these systems, this stuff that DOGE is finding, we're talking about billions and billions of dollars. And, we start talking about this stuff. Last time we showed one of the mortgages with Lori Ashley, and Bryant has talked to people that have specifically come to us and told us that she's involved in mortgage fraud.
That's right. And these people, unfortunately, they're willing to tell us these things, but they are in fear of their life for all the right reasons. I mean, look at everything we've talked about today. You have a thing if you get if you're going to die, going to kill somebody, do it in Sumner County, right? These people live there. So you saw what happened when we went into Millersville to try to drain that swamp. I mean, it was like an autoimmune reaction. It was like a hive coming around. And we had no idea who Charlene Almiller or Deborah Maggart or any of these people were. We were there for a specific job, but man, they sure attacked the hell out of us. And we got people telling, oh, who's this? You see all these players. And that's when you start, putting the chart together, like what Shawn's got with that software. You start, if you don't have something like that with that clear visual, or you don't have a spreadsheet or a flow chart, it's very easy to lose track of these things.
Right.
But when you have it there in front of you, you start thinking, wow, okay. And each one of those connections is based on credible information. I mean, there's, like you've seen the pictures of these people hanging out together. You've seen them at the same shows. You've seen them reposting each other's stuff, on social media. Those connections matter.
Yeah. So what we're looking at here is we've found, we want to know where the money comes from. We've got 113 homes that tie to Progress Residential. And those 13 homes have a total of $1,461,112,000 in mortgages. Okay. So think about that for a minute. $1 billion in mortgages. And we're finding out it's a lot of the same banks that are tied together that are doing this. And the company Progress Residential and about 200 of the companies that we've identified come back to the exact same address, which is P.O. Box 4090, Scottsdale, Arizona. And then it comes back to the physical address of 7500 North Dotson Street, Suite 300. And they've got about 200 different names that they go by. And what those are is those are shell companies. Okay. Those are shell companies. This is part of what we believe to be the money laundering organization. Another part of this money laundering organization ties directly to Canada. Of all places, Canada. Remember, we're talking about transnational money laundering. This is the money that's lining the pockets of the judiciary, the DAs, these politicians. And it's funny because all of these politicians are involved in one thing, and a lot of the judges are too, is they're involved in construction of single-family houses in one way or the other, whether it's electrical, whether it's being doing the titles, whether it's the actual physical construction of the home. But all of these people that we're talking about pretty much have their own private businesses that tie around construction that has to do with the single family homes. And they're pushing the construction agenda. So we see this money coming in billions of dollars. That's just in 3 homes. We had over $1 billion moved through 3 homes. Wow. Okay. Just in 3 homes. And we got 113 under that one name in Sumner County. So I'm going to say it's probably safe to say we've got that many homes. We probably had 100 billion run through Sumner County alone. Okay. So they've got to launder that money somehow. Okay. And what that is that's what the money we found is the ending process of the money laundering. We found the tail and we started pulling on it. Okay. And this is what it uncovered is a lot of this money is being run through the government of Canada. Canada is one of the number one money laundering places in the world. Between 40 and 130 billion dollars is laundered through Canada every year. Majority of that money is made through illegal narcotics trafficking and human trafficking, weapons trafficking, and things like that. And of course, who's tied to that? The CCP and the cartels are tied to that. The fentanyl comes from the CCP to the cartels move it. And the same thing with the human trafficking. So the 2022 to 2023 year, they audited 237 financial institutions in Canada, and only 106 had been doing the suspicious activity reports that were necessary. And that's part of the regulations that have to do with stopping money from going into terrorist financing and things like that. And what have we found through USAID and DOGE is a lot of our money was going into groups that are involved in terrorism. We were funding.
That's a big deal.
Okay. So, you're like, okay, how do they do it? Well, right here's your mechanism. Ukraine sovereignty bonds. Okay. So what's happening is Canada is putting out bonds based off of their AAA credit rating, and they're bringing in this money, and then they're using the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, to move the money for them. But it's not just them. You got the World Bank and all of that's involved in it as well. APEC, the Asian Infrastructure Bank. And think about that. China has been moving into all of these countries, helping build the infrastructure. We have companies in the state of Tennessee, which are getting bonds from China to build government buildings, and they're laundering money inside of that as well. So the construction company is helping the municipalities get loans, which are some of these bonds that are run through China. And maybe the project's $2 million, but they get $4 million. And, they say, hey, it's going to be $4 million to do it, but it only costs $2 million. And then those other $2 million go to kickbacks to your other politicians and things like that in the area. Right.
Wow.
So you have all of that happening at a micro level, but this is your international level. So the International Monetary Fund is assisting Canada in this illicit money trade, in this trafficking of the money where they're laundering it. So what we find is, when did this start? When did all of this start is what we have to ask. And Canada has gone through some major transitions over the past 20 years. And what we have found is, while under Justin Trudeau's administration, did the Canadian government take measures to involve leading bank institutions known for their significant money laundering offenses to aid in this Ukrainian bond thing that they have where they're laundering money? Would they do that? Well, only one way to know. You got to ask the question and you got to look. The government of Canada collaborated with the following financial institutions: TD Bank, Toronto Dominion Bank, Royal Bank of Canada, and Bank of Montreal. Okay. Now, why is that important? The reason that's important is because Toronto Dominion just got hit with a $3.1 billion fine by the previous DOJ. They pled guilty to doing this. Toronto Dominion did, because Toronto Dominion failed to file the suspicious activity reports. They had customers making deposits of over $1 million a day in cash. They had one customer who laundered $470 million in drug proceeds in a year. And what they were able to determine is that the money was going back to the cartels in China. Okay. So let's think about that for just a minute. We have all of this money that's moving through Sumner County, Tennessee. Yeah. We have people who are acting like they're Republicans that are nothing more than uniparty, and they're all involved in the construction business in some way, shape, or form. They're surrounding one another, protecting one another from criminal charges, and all of that. Bryant, if I'm not mistaken, isn't that considered conspiracy that falls under RICO?
It would, and I mean, you've got this like we saw the deal between the former mayor and how that affected the city with the houses being built and what should have been the right of way for emergency vehicles. We saw that in the last episode, and I've thought long and hard about why is it anytime there's construction companies involved in this stuff, one, they're usually on the board of zoning appeals in a municipality because that gives them the control of where to go. It gives them insider information in terms of what the city's going to bid for, say, a particular property or what they're going to look to sell it at. And we saw how, the city wasn't going to pay more than $50,000 for this particular property. So the other guy gets tipped off and he pays 51. So they win. But when you think about construction, and Shawn, we saw this in the some of the records we were reviewing while we were Millersville officials. It was, you think, well, how easy is it to say that you paid for 40 bags of concrete when there was only really 20 used? Then you look at like what's going on. That gives somebody, if 40 bags were bought, now you have 20 bags, you can go, and I don't know how much that does for will that be a whole driveway or whatever? I don't know, I'm just using that as a number. Right. But they can either inflate their costs so that it looks like and that's tax deductible. That's whatever. So they're keeping their money that way, or they're in fact buying this stuff and then using it on another job and charging the next guy for 20 bags of concrete. So they're pocketing this money, and it's so easy with the write-offs, it seems, with construction. But I'll tell you, it's really nefarious when it involves China. I mean, we've seen in the news over the years. They're building structures in key locations that have like surveillance equipment in it. Like they're trying to tap into cell phone towers and stuff. That is a national security threat. But you think about Toronto Dominion, for example. It's not exactly a national security threat like it is when it involves China. But if they're handling their money, and Canada makes sense. Think about it. All the eyes are. Suspicions are cast when it's the southern border, but the northern border is pretty easy to get across. You don't have as much suspicion, whatever, but you really should. And this bank, keep in mind, they tried to buy First Horizon. There was negotiations for 13-something billion to come in and buy First Horizon. That used to be First Tennessee Bank. So this stuff comes close to home. And the way
Yeah.
they do it is through shell companies. So they'll have something, not Toronto Dominion LLC, right? Anything other than that to try to conceal it. And you don't really ever know who's behind these shell corporations. And I can talk more about that here in a little bit, but it's pretty amazing how they can use these things for fraudulent mortgages. And when we're ready to get into that, I'd love to walk through that.
Yep. So the next bank we've got is RBC, Royal Bank of Canada. They've gotten in trouble as well. They've been fined as well for basically laundering money and stuff like that because they have not been filing the suspicious activity reports. The next bank that got in trouble is the Bank of Montreal. They've been a part of a Ponzi scheme, which is money laundering as well. So what's interesting about these three banks is in 1996, Toronto Dominion, Bank of Montreal, and the Royal Bank of Canada opened a joint company called SimCorp. And SimCorp is a technology company that provides data security and payment services.
So another
That
way to
means-
funnel money. Yes.
Yep. That's commingled funds. Okay. So could this be the shell company that they're utilizing? And we have to ask that because here's a property in Tennessee that in 2015, it was bought January 18th, 2015 for $105,000 with a $96,000 mortgage. That's common. That's what you see. That's a normal transaction. But pretty much less than a year later, Frio Company comes in and pays $162,000 cash for that home. What do we call that? We call that artificial inflation, because now all the other houses are going to jump by over $50,000 in price locally. And if Progress Residential bought up a bunch of other places in that area for, let's say, $105,000 previous to this purchase, you just increase those other properties by at least $50,000. But then we see where Frio Company quick deeds it over to Progress, and we see German American Corp with a $616 million mortgage. Then it's remortgaged again for $479,054,000, and they keep trying to play these little typo games, but we're not falling for it because we've pulled the actual tax histories on this. We've pulled the Alta loan mortgage insurance documents on them. We know what's there. Okay. We've got the documentation to prove it. But then you see Royal Bank of Canada coming in with a $789,891,000 mortgage on a $105,000 home here in Tennessee. So in totality, what we're seeing in places like Millersville is this. This is where the dynamic breaks down and they're able to bring in different voters. Is the cash purchase of 10 homes on one street, and they pay $100,000 for each home in cash using something like Frio, right? That's what they could use. So that's $1 million investment in 10 homes. They go the next street over in that subdivision, and that same shell company purchases 10 more homes at $100,000 each. So that's another $1 million that they've invested. So they've got $2 million invested in 20 homes. But what they do now is they purchase 2 more homes in the area, except instead of giving $100,000 cash for each of those homes, they give $150,000 for each home. Okay. So what that does is it artificially inflates the previous 20 homes that they've already purchased. So now and so that $2 million investment, now they're going to be able to quick deed all of these homes over to something like Progress if they want to, Progress Residential if they want to, for $10. And then Progress Residential, if they want to, can go get a mortgage for $1 million more than what the homes are worth because they've been artificially inflated. And that's what we're finding is happening in the city of Millersville and Sumner County. That's pushing the comps up, which is pushing out the generational families because the generational family can't afford the taxes.
Yeah. And Shawn, not just in Millersville, Tennessee.
No, this is throughout the country is where this is happening. And it just happens to be predominantly red states where it is happening. And they're pushing out the generational voter so they can put these uniparty people like we're discussing in place.
Okay, so this is kind of the geopolitical shifting. This is the gentrification.
Yes. So we look at common money laundering schemes, and basically this one involves real estate fraud, round tripping, shell companies, and trade-based money laundering. That's what we're looking at here. It meets 4 of the common money laundering schemes. But when we break it down for everybody, could this be what's actually happening? Cartels in China deposit money made from illegal acts into Toronto Dominion Bank. Money can then be commingled with RBC through SimCorp. Money released to Frio for the purchase of numerous homes, paying cash. Once they get those group of homes, they Frio could quick deed it to Progress, a group of homes for $10. Then Progress could then take out an inflated loan through places like RBC, and then clean funds come out because it's now been laundered. And then they can take part of that money and put it into the Act Blue platform. They can put it into all these politicians, and then they can put it into the Mexican cartel and into China and the CCP. So is that what we are actually looking at here? And, pretty much, yes, that's what we're looking at. This is what we are finding, not only here in Millersville and Sumner County, but we're finding it throughout the United States. So, we have to look at, or, what they're doing is they've created this entire infrastructure is what they've done, is they've created this infrastructure where they now control the court. They now control the DA. Now they have their lobbyists in that are bringing in the voting machines that they want people to use so that they can manipulate the votes.
That's right.
Or refuse to give us, let me rephrase that. They can refuse to give us the documentation to show that the vote was true. We have these huge things like Midas Touch Media that are involved in moving money. That's a part of Act Blue. That's part of the Lincoln Project. We have members of what are supposed to be the Republican Party that are supposed to be conservatives that are not. They're nothing but uniparty people that are tied into this entire mechanism that is plaguing. It's a plague. This is an absolute plague, on this country, and it's time. It's time that we out this stuff. We start holding these people accountable, and there's more than enough here to warrant further investigation. There is so much more here that Bryant and I can't share with people because if we did, it would no longer be actionable information. And Bryant can kind of, tell them about actionable information. I'll let you expound on that, Bryant.
Yeah, it's so here's the way, and Kim, I'm going to share my screen here. I've just got kind of a flow chart that I made up about how it might look, how a money laundering scheme might look. And I'm sure your viewers are wondering, well, wait a minute, they've bought these houses. Isn't that good for me if I'm in the neighborhood? Yeah, your Zillow's, you're looking at the Redfin Zillow and everything. It's just skyrocketing. But what is the risk? So if you'll recall, after 2020, they changed some of the banking rules. It used to be that when you received $1,000, for every $1,000 you received, the bank could loan out $900. They had to keep back 10%. So any bank only has 10% of the actual money that you give it, right? They're using your money. And then it goes from there to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. So you have all of this paper. And the paper is where you get into mortgage-backed securities that come in and will say, oh, well, that there's an asset that is behind this paper, kind of like how gold used to be behind the dollar, So you say, well, it's not just a piece of paper. This is great. And then you get into things like letters of credit. That's another big fraud. Now that's just a piece of paper from a bank to another bank that says this, please loan this guy $1 million. We don't have it, but we're good for it. It's an IOU. So you've got that. We saw that with the central bank fraud that we talked about in another one, and Shawn and I were directly involved in a case with that. So looking at the how this would work, it's essentially risk-free for these banks to do this. But after 2020, they don't have to have 10%. They can loan out 100%. There's 0%, right? So you've got this some of it appears to be a typo. Some of them were not even close to typos, right? So you look at that, what that does, and I'll show you over here. If you look at the screen, that's where this comes in from this hedge fund down here to this mortgage-backed security for investors, right? They can loan out. I've got mortgages, and one of them's $230 million. Now all of a sudden, I can loan out 100, I think it's 102% of that as a mortgage-backed security, right? So let's look at this. You got Pablo Escobar up here, and I just picked that name because everybody knows who that guy was, right? You have the narcotics proceeds, obviously illicit, that comes in. There is no Pablo Escobar account at your bank. Obviously, they're not going to do that. So he's got his Global Trust Services, an offshore shell company, right? Then you have Escobar Holdings LLC, would obviously be a different name, something fun, Pink Flamingo LLC or something innocent, You come here and there's a Farmers Bank. There's a Farmers Bank, I think, in every town. They love using that name. So you have your loan origination. You have this money coming in, and they want the money. I mean, most of these bankers, their mindset is we don't care where it came from. We're here to make money. So I mean, they have the Swiss banker mindset. I don't care if it's terrorists. I don't care if it's whatever. Damn these federal laws that we have. If FinCEN didn't have stiff penalties, none of them would report anything to anyone ever. So that's kind of why it's so important that we demand strict compliance with that. So then from here, it goes into a hedge fund, and that's the one you got to worry about, because once it hits the hedge fund, they just wrap these things back up over here to this shell company, and then they're selling these mortgage-backed securities and making actual money off of the typo at 100%. So now say and they'll mix them up with all of their legitimate holdings, right? So you've got legit mortgages for all these things. Mind you, they're all hyperinflated for this area based on them pumping money into it. Now that becomes a basis. That's something that they can write off later, whatever. But we're in a position now, we believe, that we're looking at something that's going to be far worse than 2008 if this collapses, because there's not anything really backing this stuff up. If you've got these typos or whatever, we know that they're not typos. We know that it is, in fact, it can be a payoff. There's ways that you can use these, right? If you have a loan from a bank and you never have to repay it, right? That's a payoff, but it's not income to you, because a loan is not income, so you don't have to report it. So a lot of these that we've seen, we believe were payoffs. Of course, we can't look at that because they took away the FinCEN access before we can get to it, but our government can, and hopefully a group like DOGE can. But once you get down to this thing, you've got clean money at the bottom of this, but they're selling them to things like your pension funds. Mm-hmm. So this could all be really affecting every single one of your viewers, Kim. And you got this money laundering, you have foreign investments coming in, you've got destruction of these things, and it's going to be not just in Middle Tennessee here. This is everywhere. So they make legitimate money off of either fake. There never was the 200 million. So they just type that in there, right? Or they put that there, and it's there, and it's part of this scheme to elevate the properties. Any which way you look at it, they know how to make money off of this stuff, and there's no way for us to find it without tools like FinCEN. I mean, and these like $3 billion fine to Toronto Dominion, how many billions did they make before that was even uncovered? And the problem with these investigations too is they're very secret, they're very confidential. So my guess would be is there was probably a whistleblower somewhere in the midst of this thing, but then there's going to be a lengthy investigation from, multiple federal agencies and things like that. And, I highly doubt that Toronto Dominion is the only one guilty of this stuff. This is everywhere. It's going to be everywhere. And they like to put their head in the sand like an ostrich, and hopefully we'll be able to uncover more of this as it moves on.
This Kim, he and Bryant brings up a really good point, and I'm gonna show you guys something. And this is basically one of the things that we are kind of looking at is you have this woman named Rosa Rios, and her entire career basically was focused on real estate and finance and economic development and gentrification in both the public and private sectors. And she was also she was part of the director of investments for McFarland Partners, San Francisco-based real estate company. But she was also part of the stuff that had to do with Alameda Employees Retirement Association. And right after the housing crisis in 2008, Obama put her as the treasurer of the United States on August 6th of 2009. Okay. And then she left in July of 2016. So you have her that's involved in the investment stuff, in the real estate, and also in the stuff that has to do with the retirement associations. And so when you look at that in totality, you can see where they were putting this together. She also happened to be the one that, being the treasurer, she had to be involved in the Iran deal where the 1.7 or the 400 million in cash that was delivered on pallets and then flown to Iran for the Obama deal. She was a part of that. Okay. So they have their people in these areas. And, Kim, some of the people that I've talked to, you've put me in contact with a lot of people as well. And some of the people that I've talked to, they're quite a bit higher on the food chain than what any of us are. And we were able to find out several months ago that we had people within the Treasury and FinCEN that were flagging information that we were pulling. And then when I was out in Vegas there, we had another gentleman come in that was a banker and attorney that was going after some of the CCP stuff that validated that there are people in FinCEN flagging this stuff so we can't get the information through FinCEN. And that has to do with the corruption that's been happening that DOGE has been finding. So, a lot of these places they've got to be cleaned out. And I mean, like completely cleaned out. Yeah. I mean, there's no room for error on this, because if we err on this, it's not going to dismantle what we need to dismantle. And when we take those little pieces of the puzzle that I was showing you guys earlier, and we plug those couple of cells in that we were showing everybody, it goes into one organism. And basically, this is what that one organism looks like. You see all of these different connections, and you're just like, how in the world could this be happening? But what you have to do is you have to take the time to reconstruct everything that you have validation on. And you got to be able to prove things. It's got to be multiple forms of validation and verification before it's entered into the chart. And what we end up finding is we have members of our judiciary that are involved in this. We have governors that are involved in this. We have district attorneys who are involved in this. We've got bankers. We've got people like Al Gore who are involved in this. We've got more bankers. We got Goldman Sachs. We got Royal Bank of Canada. We've got all the stuff that goes into the Act Blue. And I mean, it just, everything they have built this huge infrastructure. And it's amazing because everything keeps coming back to Maricopa.
Maricopa County, Arizona.
To Maricopa are absolutely amazing. I mean, we have people in this we've got Eric Holder that's involved in this. He's one of the ones that helped represent the Tennessee Three.
Yes.
Justin Pearson
is
one of the Tennessee Three. Okay. So we have all of these things. And what people don't realize is it is all connected. This is what they have been building for many, many, many years. And many
years, how long, Shawn? When you say many, many, many years.
I am going to say probably, I'm going to say, I would say the infrastructure started getting laid, back under probably Kennedy, right around the Kennedy assassination. And then it really got pushed and moved ahead with George Bush Sr., where he was talking about one world order, about a global government, about all of that, because essentially that's what we're looking at. And that's what this is. That's where you see them pushing these agendas that they're pushing. And right now what they're pushing is these homes, multifamily homes and the single family residences where they're able to move the money. Unfortunately, we're not the first to have found this. Catherine Austin Fitts found this when she worked under the Bush Senior's administration over HUD. She found where they were laundering money through HUD the exact same way, and it was going into black ops projects that were off the books, that were more than likely financing the stuff that we were seeing with Pablo Escobar.
Shawn, let's look. So where do we go from here? You have information and evidence that is coming in over and over. I mean, you have email, you've got calls. It is just expansive. And like you said, you cannot show us some of the things on here. You can't reveal some of that information. But
Right.
everything that DOGE is exposing, you have all the evidence of. I'm getting some
Yeah.
echo.
So where we go from here is we do stuff like the RICO cases, like Bryant is putting together, and people need to understand putting together these RICO cases, that is hundreds of hours of time. And he doesn't get paid for that. You know, this is
That's right.
his time that he's not getting paid to put this stuff together. You know, he's got things that he's got to worry about and be able to pay for, but he's standing up for everybody and filing this RICO case. He's going to be filing more RICO cases, but he doesn't get paid for that. You know, that's money out of his pocket just to be able to file this. This is $2 or $3 grand out of his own pocket to be able to do that. But it has to, you know, we have to continue with things like the RICO cases. We have to continue gathering this type of evidence that we're finding right now. We have to have people who aren't afraid to come forward to be whistleblowers. We can get you the attorneys that are needed to be a whistleblower, to provide the information and documentation that we need to go after the stuff that we're looking at here. But what's happening right now is you have DOGE, which is uncovering everything and showing the people where the fraud's at, where your money has gone. The next thing that we have to do is we have to get into the investigative side. We have to get into the investigative side. We have to start doing grand juries and cleaning out the judiciary. We've got to start cleaning out the DA conferences across the United States and things like that. And the DA's conference is key along with the judiciary. And I want Bryant to kind of tell a little bit about one of the cases that he was involved in that ties into what we're talking about. Bryant, and I think you know which one I'm talking about.
We've got so I'm getting a little feedback here from something.
Do you guys have another window open where it's up on another screen?
Shawn, is it from you?
It may be. I'll mute mine so you can talk.
Great. Thanks,
There you
man.
go.
So yeah, we've worked. What's interesting is Shawn has worked a lot of cases with me because he's been a law enforcement consultant and an open source intelligence just expert. And what we find out with a lot of these cases, and whether you call it the deep state or whether you call it Dixie Mafia, we're talking about organized crime that used to rely on legitimate businesses to launder through their money. And then we're finding out that they got smart. And what's better to do? Send your son to Harvard and then let him become one of these bankers. And then when you have a banker that's on this fraudulent, performing fraudulent stuff, you've got the fox in the hen house. So we were involved in several issues that ended up overlapping. One of which was a huge bank fraud case that right here in Tennessee. And we started seeing how that worked and essentially moving on from there and seeing who these people were. And you start looking at who's on the board of directors and what's going on and things of that nature. But we've also got, we're working a case where we started seeing where the corruption really was behind the scenes. So when you do a lot of whistleblower cases like I do, you get a lot of whistleblowers that come in and tell you stuff that I tell you probably wish you didn't know. Honestly, it goes all the way up to the top. And we were investigating some of these people that are right here in Nashville, and it goes right into just the top of the government. Some of the stuff I'm kind of afraid to say because I think it's still actionable under RICO. Remember, it's got 10-year look back for a RICO, and that's one of the amazing things about this. So some of this stuff is still actionable, but when you hear it from an eyewitness, when you've seen the videos, when you have this stuff, and you're just like, wow, that is absolutely true. It's true. Yeah. And you can't believe it. But we're talking about sex trafficking. We're talking about judges being involved in that. Anybody wants to go look at Casey Moreland. Just go Google Casey Moreland from Nashville, Tennessee. And he was having sex with the women that were coming through, being trafficked essentially through his courtroom. And this is not fantasy. This is not fiction. This is real. This really happened. Yeah. And I mean, there's a podcast on that, by the way. I'll plug it. Once Upon a Time in Nashville. It is fantastic. John's in it, and we worked on some of these things together for a long time. And I mean, when you've got a bad actor at different layers of government, it's what extends the tentacles of these organizations so far that they can cover up. And then they even have their media people after, because what you got to control public perception. So this is not news, it's propaganda when they start doing this stuff. And you're going to repeat it. And fake news Phil, who I love that the White House is calling him that.
It's great.
Absolutely amazing. That. Now he blocked me. I can't comment on anything of his. I can't even see it.
He sent me a few messages.
Yeah. I mean, so that tells you something. He doesn't want any bad news. He deletes anything that's critical of him. He deletes, but he's this mouthpiece that goes off, and he was doing up to 2 stories, sometimes even more a day, right before the election, bop, 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 hammering it. They can influence elections, especially when they're inside the election commission, especially when you have these giant PACs coming out of nowhere being set up for a specific thing to pay for these people, and unprecedented amounts of PAC donations that came in through little old Millersville. And why there? You're going to see this in any town where there is a blue city like Nashville that is expanding into red cities and red counties like Sumner County. And it's the term for this is purpling. And it all starts with who owns properties, who's renting, who can they bring in. And Shawn and I actually found evidence in another state where they were letting people essentially have seriously discounted rent as long as they voted Democrat. They'd show up, they wanted protests and things like that. And I don't remember, was that in Maricopa County too, or was that somewhere else, Shawn? It's just something that came to my mind, but I was like,
one of the things we found is some of the people that were trying to get buy homes, they would go to try to buy a home, and all of a sudden this company would come in and say, hey, if you come with us, you don't have to put a down payment on the property. We're going to give you a 1 or 2 point lower interest rate than what's here now, but you have to agree to go to some of these events that we have. And as long as you attend this many events a year, then we're going to let you be able to buy that house and do that. And so we've actually found companies that are doing that are a part of this agenda.
Yep. So you see it on social media. They say, well, these protesters are actors. They look like actors. Where do they come from? Well, how easy is it we've had this come through Nashville. There was a troop of Nazis that were coming through here, and you start wondering, is the media, because they set up these shills where it was fake news Phil confronting the Nazi, and you don't look like a white supremacist to me. And I'm like, who paid this guy to travel from whatever rock he came out from under in Indiana or whatever to come up here for all of this stuff where they make money off of this? But they're hammering it down your throat to the point that you don't even know which way is up. And then we're finding out that these media outlets are being paid to do this with our tax dollars, to create this dissent and all of this just influx to make us just stay in fight or flight mode. It should outrage every single one of your viewers. And I mean, it's some people are very, 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 very pissed off. And I mean, and
they should be right now.
Yeah. And I mean, there's some people that probably need to get out of town, because any more of this stuff coming out and any more of this stealing of our money and any more of this manipulation stuff, there's a risk of violence happening. You've seen the stuff on social media, and, I'm not going to comment on that, but I think a lot of people are actually thinking, yeah, it's about time. It's about pitchfork time. It's about time for some 77.
That's so funny that you said that, because, I'm getting ready this morning, and literally I just had this vision of everybody, the farmers, the people showing up with their pitchforks saying, no more. We are taking this republic back. You guys are criminals. You will be prosecuted. We're going to hold every single one of you accountable, and especially the former administration, for treason.
Well, we saw, I think it was the Ninth Circuit said that some of those pardons, since there were no charges, some of those pardons, that this is unprecedented. This came from a liberal circuit too, saying the pardons weren't effective until the charges. Yeah.
That's funny. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's take a 10,000 view perspective right now. Here's the question. Everything we've looked at in these past 3 shows, Operation Clean Sweep 1, Operation Clean Sweep 2, and Operation Clean Sweep 3. 10,000-foot view of everything being exposed. For what purpose? Why is all of this happening? All the pieces connected. Why?
Money,
What's the agenda?
money, power, control. We've seen it with with the sex trafficking. You get the girls, you get all of this, you get the loans as payoffs. Once you're in this crew, you can control the elections. And the most important part is you get a get out of jail free card. When you commit a crime in some of these counties and you're protected, you've got top cover. Citizens can't just go prosecute somebody. Now, you can present something to a grand jury in a lot of states. And in Tennessee, you can. Other states, you can. You go demand it. But you know what that prosecutor can do? Nollie prosecute, or dismissal with prejudice, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't sue that prosecutor and get around absolute prosecutorial immunity. So these immunities protect the key players. And then these others just get away with it. So now you don't have like the mafia and the untouchables. The untouchables are the mafia. That's it. They've merged. There's no more, So whether you call this, we call it Dixie Mafia down here, but it's organized crime, deep state stuff, and it's the appointed officials. So you have your elected officials, and who they appoint is critical. And so hopefully we'll see some draining of the swamp when they get new appointees coming in.
Yes.
But like the U.S. attorney's positions are coming up. Those are federal positions. And I think Tennessee is going to be a flashpoint for a lot of this based on the connections that we have here that flow to other states. So it's all tied together. You see, it's election fraud, it's mortgage fraud, and it's overall corruption, and they all work together. It's all part of that net, the same hand that grabs little guys and tries to falsely charge people like Shawn Taylor and others with crimes that don't exist while openly letting the bad guys go. I mean, I've been in court with some of these people before, and when you go in there, just little old, John Doe, they're going to hammer you. They will hammer you and let other scumbags walk. They turn a blind eye to it. But I've seen them put people in jail for absolutely nothing. Nothing. I mean, I watched a guy get 10 days in jail from some of these very people for showing up late because of an accident or because they're
right
or something. They're trying to actively hold some of the former administration in Millersville, some of the officers that were brought in by Chief Morris, started trying to hold them in criminal contempt for being late. One guy had pneumonia and couldn't.
Oh my gosh!
Trying to do criminal contempt and retaliation.
Yeah,
They have. When they have that power, they have the control of the courts. And one more thing I wanted to add, when you have these frivolous lawsuits like what we were discussing, I wanted to expound on that because citizens need to be wary of this. Frivolous lawsuit, this lawsuit that Charlene Almiller was in, that she filed pro se, she's an attorney, right? It's an Open Meetings Act violation, right? The fix for that is to go back and redo the vote, right? So you have to deliberate in the sunshine in Tennessee. I think it's probably every state you do. If you have a deliberation, then you go vote, the vote is undone, and then you just go redo it and deliberate if you must. There's no requirement for deliberation, but do it if you will. But this judges are leaving these lawsuits open for years.
Wow.
And allowing these people to subpoena cell phone records of people that aren't even involved in this stuff, so that they can see who you're calling and who you're talking to. And then they're going to get their own net of this stuff. And then they're going to retaliate against you. And this is how it works. So you got to look out for this stuff. Who's letting this absolute frivolous crap stand? Hold them accountable. Next time they're up for an election, fight the machine.
That's what we can do. That's what we can do.
This is so important to know who the candidates are on the ballot when you get in there. Do a little bit of research. If you've got a friend that's really into this stuff, you trust their opinion, go talk to them. There's been times when I haven't followed an election very closely for local politics, but I know who to go talk to, whose opinion I trust. do some searching with AI and stuff, artificial intelligence. You could probably pull up a pretty good report of what's coming out on these people. Do a little bit of homework before you click vote on these things.
So good, Bryant.
And that's assuming your vote's actually not going to be fraudulently tossed out. That's a whole nother thing. But at least do your homework and be sure. We had this issue in Millersville where they got the wrong ballot. They were intentionally given the wrong ballot to drown out the votes that they knew were people that were going to be voting for a candidate that they didn't like.
So ridiculous. So ridiculous.
And you got to set it aside. You got to go talk to this person. Say, you gave me the wrong ballots. Don't click yes. Don't click submit.
That's right. That's right. Bryant, I was one of those people who went to vote in 2020, and they had told the couple before me they had already voted. So, and the couple was confused. They left. We went to vote next, both my husband and myself. We gave them our names. They actually asked, who we were. That's actually a pretty big deal. So, and we take out our IDs, of course, because that's what should be happening.
Right.
And they said, Mr. and Mrs. Yeater, you're good to go. You've already voted. That was the grand awakening.
Yes, who did I vote for?
That was the grand awakening for me. That's what it took. Mama woke up. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Shawn, 10,000 foot view, global agenda. What is the agenda? Why is all of this happening? For what purpose?
So this is a multifaceted attack from a foreign adversary who has corrupted our system with money to create financial influence to be able to manipulate the different sectors within our infrastructure. So basically, those infrastructures are the law within your civil courts, within your criminal courts. We've seen that the bar is becoming a part of this now. We have seen that the real estate, the banks are a part of this now. The construction industry is a part of this now. So they're attacking multiple areas of our infrastructure. And you've got to look at how much land China is purchasing in the United States as well. It's also, a lot of the land is very close to our military installations and things like that. Mm-hmm. We're finding out that, we've got lists of electronics that we can and can't use within our government facilities. Heck, we found out in Millersville, we had camera systems that were on the list that we weren't supposed to use that have AI attached to them that report
Chinese,
back
to
China.
Yeah, you run these through packets and it goes straight back to Beijing.
Yeah, so we have this multifaceted attack that's happening where they're pushing these agendas throughout the world. And, Canada fell for it. And there's a lot of people up there who are pissed off and they want their freedom back. We have the people in Australia who are being attacked. And, this is about dominance and being able to create control. And this is them trying to create an oligarchy government is what they're doing. And they have to take over key counties in key states to be able to continue manipulating everything. So this is an attack on our sovereignty in this country. And we have political officials who have committed treason by going and being a part of this. Any political official who has received money from any of this, any political official who has tried to stop a legitimate vote, any political official who has tried to stop legitimate things that the citizens are bringing forward or law enforcement is bringing forward, as far as I'm concerned, that's treason and they should be brought up on trial because they are acting under a foreign adversary's control because of the money. So at this point, it's time for DOGE to go in, start tearing apart. That way we're going to be able to identify where the money is going to. Mm-hmm. That's where we go in and we clean out the IRS. We clean out USAID. We clean out all of these different areas so that we have a clear playing field of what we're looking at. Then what we do is we assign the investigative teams to start going after these public officials and even private people and industries and things like that. And we start charging them. We start putting people in prison. But we have to start with the judiciary and the district attorneys conferences across the United States. We have to clean out the DOJ and every single assistant U.S. prosecutor, every AUSA there is. We got to get rid of them. It's time to start new and put some good people in charge there. I think Pam Bounty's on her way with that, but we're going to have to use that to go after your state the state plays, the
right.
local areas and things like that. So once you clean those states out and you have these district attorney conferences that are broke up, you've charged them criminally, you got them in prison or whatever they're going to be on, as well as the judges. That's then you're going to be able to clean out your election and all of that, clean up your election offices like we have here in Sumner County that needs to be cleaned out. And we start putting people in that have absolutely 100% had a complete background check. And I think it's time that if you're going to be an elected official, that FinCEN reports and your financial reports have to be run so we can see where your money is coming from, where your money is going to, so we can identify any threats in the future. And that's the only way we're going to be able to do that. That's how you're going to be these people who are put into office are accountable to the people. Because at the end of the day, it's we, the people, that matter. It's our money that they have stolen, and they're using our own tax money against us. We are literally funding the attack that they are committing against us right now. Okay. We're funding our own demise. And that's what's happening.
We are. People thought it was George Soros. George Soros it appears that he's just using our money, I mean, this is the thing. Yeah. I think, Kim, it's going to be critical here. Trump's picks, the Trump administration's picks for U.S. attorneys in these positions. You need to get a go-getter. You need to get somebody in there to go in there and start kicking some ass because it's federal crimes. Now, the Bureau, the FBI, if they are actually empowered, right, there are people when the Department of Justice gets in and starts dictating what the FBI can look at. There were credible reports of election fraud that were never investigated because the DOJ at the time said, we have to wait till all this other stuff is going off, way later, and then they're going to turn it over to the states. Well, if you turn it over to the states, what's going to happen? Who's in control? Well, they've got their organization up. So what we need is a weapons-free investigatory group that's not connected. So like in Tennessee, the TBI ran the FinCEN reports based on what the officers do. So there's eyes, they're seeing who's being run. And, I can't say who was run, but there was a particular one that triggered this. Oh, well, whoa, we got to stop this thing. You can't disclose the target of a FinCEN report, apparently, unless you're the TBI, then you could do it. That's a story.
Yeah.
It's a felony. It's a felony to do that, but they're doing it. So we really can't make this stuff up. But I think we're going to see that this administration at the federal level, because these are federal crimes, and the judge that I mentioned before, Casey Moreland, it was the FBI who went after him, and he was prosecuted in federal court. And there's reasons for that. Federal courts were set up literally as part of the way to avoid local corruption for these things. And I mean, the judicial races here it's not partisan, but there's the Republican judge and then the Democrat judge. They're backed, but it's not officially a partisan election, although it is. So like, who's behind it? There's politics involved at every level, at least in Tennessee. And I bet this is at every other place in every other small town from here to
our backyards. That's the truth. Yep. Okay. So Cash Patel,
bring it on.
How do you see Operation Clean Sweep working with Cash?
What I think could happen,
by the way.
Say that again, Bryant.
What we can do.
Go ahead, Shawn. You want to talk about that? Go ahead, man. I don't want to interrupt you.
What we can do is, take collective law enforcement and that already has the information, build a task force of different agencies to be able to go after this, because we're going to have some local agency involvement. We're going to have some AUSAs, assistant U.S. attorneys that are involved, and we're going to have investigative grand juries involved, and we're going to have to start going after the very thing that these people are moving the money with, which is going to be the houses that they are taking out these loans on. So if we take out what they are using to manipulate the money flow, then they can no longer move that money. So that's where the asset forfeiture comes in, and we start using asset forfeiture to stop the money flow. We start seizing these bank accounts. And just because a bank account is in another country doesn't mean that we cannot go get that money. Believe me, there are numerous cases in the United States with the DOJ where they have gone over to other countries and pulled that money back out of accounts that is illicit funds, hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay. So what we've got to do is we've got to be able to build a team and talk to Kash Patel, build this team up. And it needs to be, different people from different federal agencies that come together to do this. And, a great place to start is right here in Tennessee, because we've already got the roadmap. We know who's doing what, and, we can make it happen.
Yeah, this is not as hard as it sounds. So, like, remember, DOGE was at one point another agency that had been created. The way the federal laws work, the president can just rename an agency. It doesn't even require a presidential, mandate. It could be done by a memorandum. But a federal task force is one option. Another one is to rebrand a mothballed investigative unit, fund it, or if we're going to find plenty of funding with what DOGE is doing right now. I mean, it doesn't take that much. But this team needs to have people that with experience, that needs to have either what's called a SALSA, Special Assistant U.S. Attorney. The only qualifications are that you're an attorney. So this is it. So you could create this task force or this specialized unit that doesn't have to run their searches through a portal that's monitored by another. It's good. It's direct in a lot of these circumstances. You won't run into the interference, which comes into play. And this stuff, it could be easily funded. It could be, run through some things. There's wiretap rooms and things that are already ready to go, and things like that you can join into. But this thing, based on some of the estimates that we were looking at, some of the information I've shared with Shawn, we could get something 30, 60, 90 days and hit the ground running.
Beautiful.
And that's all it's going to take. All I got to do is give me a call. I've got the white paper on it.
Come on, Bryant. That's so good. So we go from a civil RICO case to a criminal RICO case.
Criminal RICO, you don't have to have the damages to property or business. The damages are to the public. As a U.S. attorney, U.S. attorney can bring that. You can bring state charges in federal court too. There's all kinds of things that you can do when you have that power. And one of the most powerful ones, and Shawn knows a lot about this because he's been part of them, but it's the investigative grand jury. You can get grand jury subpoenas, and that's all secretive. That's all stuff that stays very tight, because what we find out is people get tipped off. We think a lot of what this was with the TBI investigation, going around and telling people apparently, and we're getting this from a lawsuit that was filed where the dude admitted it. And I'm like, oh wow, that's interesting, but it sounds like they were just tipping people off. By the way, you were the subject of a SARS report. Oh God, evidence of money laundering. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to close up that account and go somewhere else, and they're not going to make that mistake again. So you just toss that criminal, a lifeline.
Yep. All right. A message, guys. We're going to close out today. This was so powerful. I want to encourage everybody to go back, watch episode 1, watch episode 2. So that's Operation Clean Sweep Part 1, Operation Clean Sweep Part 2, and then come and watch this again. Okay. You can find all of that on the platforms that you're on. The platform you're on right now very likely has the shows because they were streaming it. You can also find it at rumble.com /C/Take Your Power Back Show. So it's the Take Your Power Back Show on Rumble. You want to go there. You want to find all of those. I want to encourage all of our listeners to support Bryant Kroll, to support Shawn Taylor. Go and watch the Federal RICO case yourself. Go and look at it, download it, go through it. That way you have an idea of what you can do on a local level, how to bring the evidence to light. Now, we may not have the technologies that Assistant Chief Shawn Taylor has, which exposes it, but let me tell you, there's many ways to slay the cat here. There's many ways to bring that evidence out into the light. Now, to support Assistant Chief Shawn Taylor, you can see the link below, givesendgo.com /stand with Shawn. This is not easy for Shawn to ask for money. Guys, it costs to move over and over so that you're not killed. Now, if you remember, Fox TV reported to the public where he lived on 2 occasions. Absolutely complicit in corruption. That is against the rules, okay? Unless you have another agenda there. So we've got to support Shawn. He is standing for every single one of us. And all of this requires funding. And I know so many of us have used our own money to fund all of our initiatives in taking this country back. So every little bit counts, guys, anything that you can give. And your time of getting this out there is so valuable. Share this with 10 people you know today. When it's up, share, share, share. And then Bryant Kroll, I'm going to pull that link up right now for former Millersville City Attorney Bryant Kroll. This is his link, givesendgo.com/Millersville RICO. That's givesendgo.com/Millersville RICO. You know, last night, Shawn and Bryant and I had our powwow. We kind of had our pre-production, bring everything to the table. What's today going to look like? And, you know, it was no holds barred. It was raw. It was authentic. It was transparent. This sucks. This is painful. This information should absolutely what is the word? It should ignite everything in you, every fighter, every little bit of fight in you to wake up and say, no more, not on my watch. We're going to take this country back. We're going to take my city back. At 11:30 last night, you know, I'm on a Spaces, you know, with local San Diegans who are standing up. That's what it's going to take. Maybe it's not 11 o'clock at night for you, but get involved. Every single one of us needs to get involved on a local level. General Flynn, again, local action equals national impact, and the time to be in action is now. We are not done yet. You've heard the saying, not till the fat lady sings. Well, she ain't sung yet. It's time, you guys. Get involved. Now, call to action. So we know getting involved, call to action, sharing this call to action. Shawn, Bryant, I want a word, a call to action for you guys, for the people, and then for those out there who are complicit in this illegal activity.
It's time. It's a matter of time before the people that are complicit are going to be wrapped up in this thing. We're going to follow the money, you know. And I want to say, Kim, thank you so much for having us out here. I've gotten a lot of calls and emails from your supporters, from people that watch your stuff. And anybody that has information on anything, feel free to email. You can email me through my website. That's up there, BryantKroll.com. It's secure. Only I look at it. I'll get it there. And Shawn has some that he uses too. You can feel free to give him any sort of tips or anything like that. And what you say to me, it's privileged. I won't release anything unless you want me to. So I appreciate that. And any of the donations that go to the Millersville RICO, that's 100% for Detective Michael Candler and Captain Todd Doris for their legal expenses. All of this stuff does cost money, the filing fees, all of the service of process and things like that. There's funds that come out. And so if you want to help these guys who are just wrapped up in this fake news BS, if you want to help them fight back, those donations will go directly to fight that cause.
So good. Yep. All right, Shawn, bring us home.
You know, we've always said it's time. And everybody was waiting for the November election. And there was all this, an election's not going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. Well, you know what? We made it past the election. We've made it past several of the people being installed. And you know, it's always like a hurry up and wait. We're waiting for Patel to get in. And of course, we know the Democrats and some of these criminal Republicans are scared to death of what's going to be found out, especially when you bring people like Cash and DOGE together and we start identifying all of this corruption and then where it's going to go to, where all this money's gone to. Well, it's coming. You can't stop it. You know, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So we highly suggest that people start becoming part of the solution, because if they don't and they're found to be a part of the problem, you're probably going to go down as well. You're probably going to end up being charged for something that you were involved in. We've got a lot of people that are bringing information forward. Bryant and I have received information from whistleblowers already that, we haven't discussed publicly. We won't discuss publicly because that'll go into criminal things that they brought information forward on with some of these individuals that we've talked about directly, some of these agencies that we've talked about directly. Yeah. And things are about to get good. Things are about to really heat up, but people need to understand we are in the war right now. What was happening before, that wasn't the war. This is the war. We have until the 2026 midterm elections to be able to disrupt this enough to keep them from being able to take control of the other side, where they get the numbers and they can stop us from moving forward with taking out this corruption. So we have a very short time frame. We have a very limited window where we can act to be able to get all of this done and disrupt this enough that we're able to bring accountability forward and be able to show the people that paid all of these hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes that the government takes that theft seriously. Okay. And people need to be held accountable, and it's coming.
Kim, I gotta put one more thing in on that. He's just triggered what happens when you have a whistleblower and you have somebody who was maybe part of the fraud and they come forward and they want to give this information up. Usually with the FBI, especially, you could do what's called a proffer, which is essentially a way of saying, hey, my guy's got information. If he were to give you this information, it comes through an attorney. So go and see an attorney, and an attorney will do this for you. And I think this is why we're seeing up in DC, criminal defense attorneys being Googled like crazy. And I hope it's for this reason, because if there's proffers coming through based on the knowing fraud, they're going to want to go up to the person who was profiting from this, not the little henchmen that were forced into doing it, right? So when you have that knowledge, now is the time to come forward, do a proffer. You won't be prosecuted, and get these anti-American bastards who have been stealing from us. It's time for them to spend some time in Guantanamo Bay.
Well said. Well said. Bryant Kroll, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for fighting this fight with us. Shawn Taylor, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We're not done yet. You get a reprieve. You get to go to the bathroom. You get to get some food, and then right back to work. We are ready. We're in this to the very end. We're running this race with perseverance marked out for us. Any final words before we close out the show today?
Come check us out at the Quantum Summit, March 8th and 9th down in Florida. I'll be at that event speaking with a lot of other people. And I want to give a shout out to Juan 07 about the kind words that he said about me on Mike Jaco's show. Juan, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate you. Kim, we appreciate you and everything that you've done, and the entire team that's behind you. It takes all of us working together to be able to get to that common goal. And so we appreciate y'all.
Oh, we love you guys so much. It has been an honor running this race with you, and we are not done yet. And for our listeners today, this Civil Federal RICO case that's been discussed in the last 3 Operation Clean Sweeps exposes the microcosm of this systematic corruption and opens the door for us for a Federal Criminal RICO case. It is the template for all of us fighting this corruption. Thank you to every single one of you for being here today. Thank you for sharing this. Thank you for supporting Assistant Chief Shawn Taylor and City Attorney Bryant Kroll. It's time. It's time for we the people to step into our God-given power, take action in our leadership, and allow our voices to be heard. The time is now. Support these freedom-loving patriots. Share this show today. You can find all of our shows on takeyourpowerbackshow.com. And thank you to every single one of our live streamers. It is because of you all that the word has gotten out far and wide. It's going to take all of us coming together to slay this beast. And remember that this battle we are in is a spiritual battle, and it is the biggest spiritual battle of our lifetime. Colossians 15, where does our peace come from? It's not necessarily going to come from seeing all of these criminals being taken out. That is going to give us some peace, but our true peace is going to come from the word of God, from our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. He says, let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body, all of us working together, all of his people chosen for this time, working together are called for peace, and be thankful. Why be thankful? Because when we are thankful, when we are in gratitude, it activates that brain. It keeps us in an abundant mindset and reminds us that we have already won. We are victors in Christ. We are not victims of the enemy, and that enemy will be crushed. It will be. All of the enemy will be crushed because we win in the end. Now, that doesn't mean we wait. We take action, and we take action now. So let's do that. We love you. God bless you. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for sharing this with everybody you know. And Assistant Chief Shawn Taylor, thank you. Bryant Kroll, former Millersville City Attorney, thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
All of our audience, thank you. We love you. God bless you. What we're going to finish out with right now is what we started with. We're going to bring you right back into the video. And these are many of our partners who joined us in Operation Clean Sweep series, part 1, part 2, and part 3. Let's take our power back. Let's take our great republic back. God bless you.